Dear Santa, this year I want spaghetti, I would like a new sledgehammer handle please just give me the sledge bit, not the hammer. I would like the neighbour's parrot to get some sort of toy to play with or something, or else I'm going to blow its head off. Then I guess I'll wish for a million wishes. Actually, no, you know what I'd really like a new computer monitor, because I'm still using the same 75Hz monitor since 2016, and all of the pixels are dead. So if you could donate Santa in the comments of this video to help me fund that, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, yours sincerely, Big LQ. Wow! That's got to be the worst video intro I've ever done. Oh, I hit record. So the other day, whilst I was sleeping, not only was I unleashing the wrath of Namor onto my bedsheets, but I was also, ironically enough, dreaming about what my next video entry in this Marvel we call Rivals would be. But it was ultimately the Italian dinner I had with the wife to celebrate our 3rd anniversary, and a friendly video recommendation from YouTube that made me realise that I have to kill again. And so whether you come for the Brits, the funny bits, or the glamour and glitz, I'd tolerate most of you, as today we're taking a look at which Marvel Rivals characters have canonically eaten pizza. And just while he's on the screen, Dr. Fentanyl over here is physically incapable of slamming down a czar, so he gets his own special tier. 2 videos in a row, Ultron. You're still dining at the pizzeria in my heart. Although, to be fair, you are killing the staff. The rest of tonight's game is a simple one. One of the tiers, however, does come with a caveat. Context is a very important thing. For example, see this normal looking map here? Now rewind 2 seconds, look at the map again, and watch how quickly your brain disintegrates when I play you this piece of audio. The context I'm referring to here is that if a character has either lived in or spent an extended period of time in New York City specifically, they get a Disney Fast Pass into the Pizza Time tier. The reason for why I'm doing this is pizza. And is also because when setting out to do research for this video, I had this rule with Italy in mind, but turns out all 44 characters in this game, just like me, see Italy for what it is. Fake. Whilst the Italians are currently scrambling to stop cooking their meatballs so they can type at a keyboard, let's start off by covering 4 characters I already knew going into this were New Yorkers. Being a Spider-Man without a relation to pizza is kind of like being a blind man without an overwhelming presence of self-importance and ego. I hate the blind. Your friendly neighbourhood nuisance has been slinging Tsar longer than he has been webs, and so there isn't a soul watching this expecting him to go anywhere else but the Pizza Time tier. Now, as a mashed potato beater, the last thing I'd ever do is see dry beaters as valuable members of society. Just like how the last thing I'd ever do is see Captain America mains as a good use of oxygen. Skinny kid born in Brooklyn, there would have been some Tsar on his plate. I mean, gas pizza ovens alone have existed in New York since the 1930s, and just me saying that really makes you realise that orphanages really are a waste of space. Mr. Peculiar is definitely the odd one out here, as whilst he was born in Pennsylvania, he was actually raised in Nebraska, and those amongst you smart enough to know that bread tastes better than key will understand that neither of those places are New York. Fortunately for him though, the Sanctum Sanctorum is actually based in Manhattan, and with this being his primary place of residence, I'm pretty sure he stopped down the road for a quick slice. And finally, we have Gordon Ramsay, hailing from Hell's Kitchen. Post-accident, Matt isn't one for strong foods in particular, but even before that, he was just a poor blind orphan hailing from a poor blind family. Pizza was definitely on the menu. Wait a minute. Blind? Orphan? With Daredevil slowly beaten to death by a flurry of tiny missiles, we can just drag the rest of these characters into the top tier. Again, these are just the characters I already knew were related to New York going into this. You know, speaking of New York actually, I thought I'd check out the map just to see if there was anything interesting, and there was actually a diner advertising that it sells pizza. But in a plot twist I could only describe as Netflix levels of predictable, there were no actual pizzas on the tables, only hot dogs and bread rolls. Terrible game, Double Guang. 4 out of 10, go play Fire Emblem. Wait a minute. That's the Baxter Building. Yeah, okay, so for some reason I just never really clocked that the Baxter Building was in New York City. Like, the thing is literally as best a representation of a New Yorker as you could get. I really don't know how that passed my mind. And to the Americans currently clowning on me for this, it's at this point that I'd like to remind you that no one outside of your country gives a damn about what you're up to. No, I'm being serious here. You're about as relevant to the real world as a cheeseburger is to these 2 Fruit Loops. Wow, I cannot wait for the behind-the-scenes disaster documentary to be made on this film. It's gonna be so funny. You should subscribe, by the way, because if I'm able to double my subscriber count by the end of the next year, I will rally up everyone who's ever laid eyes upon my channel, and we will all kick Luna Snow and her 4 legendary skins squarely in the dick. Oh, and the other thing is, I'm actually going to be streaming the Game Awards in my Discord server, and that's happening on the 11th of December, so if that's something you want to be a part of, join down below. Anyway, yeah, we can just consider the Fantastic Four skins pizza eaters. As for the next group of characters we should cover, Why don't we spin a wheel, and then we can see what fate has to say about things. Oh, I wonder who it's going to be. Well, I think it's good. Okay, that was genuinely unscripted. That could have been really, really funny. Anyway, I thought it would be a good idea to cover some Avengers next, because just like Lizzo being a few pizzerias away from death, the Baxter Building is a few pizzerias away from the Avengers Tower. The places of residency, numbers, and racial hatred levels of the Avengers have all fluctuated over the years, and so I'm really going to need some definitive proof of these characters slamming down slices. Tony is a big boy toy for big toy boys. Whenever he's not sleeping on a large pile of women like a dragon, he's probably either being rich, eating junk food, or killing people. Yeah, it turns out he kills a lot of people. Even though in the comics he was adopted, he spent a lot of time in Manhattan and specifically founded the Avengers Tower, or Stark Tower as it used to be, in New York City. And even though that qualifies him enough, I did manage to find this panel which just makes me chuckle in a silly way. You know, whilst I was doing my research into Tony, I actually found out that Hulk specifically has eaten quite a lot of stuff on the big page. Just two examples here are from when Tony, Spider-Man, and Hulk were all roommates, and another one here on the front page of one of the Jeff comics, and I think it's quite strongly implied he's going to eat all of this. Maybe with this, he'll finally become what he was always destined to be, one of those fat guys who only wears Hawaiian shirts. Now, even with her status as an Avenger preceding her, I thought the chances of Nat eating pizza were on the same likelihood levels as Margaret Thatcher waking up tomorrow and dusting herself off, but I was pleasantly disproven twice. The first one comes from an intro panel for Spider-Man from this one Avengers game, and I wasn't fully willing to accept this as an answer. I haven't really touched on the comics versus the MCU versus the games yet, but just like my previous video, the MCU is irrelevant, the comics are our main source, and we'll cross the hurdle of games if we have to get there. Fortunately though, we never had to cross that hurdle to begin with, as during my research I found the Big Panel TM, and the Big Panel TM features Nat sitting next to a half-eaten pizza. And McDonald's for some reason. Like, those are unmistakably the Golden Arches. Yes, I know the pizza is not in her hand or in her mouth, but if I woke up next to a dead hooker with chunks of her missing, I think people would draw a pretty reasonable conclusion. I eat a pizza, I kill your husband. Okay, day 3 of audio recording, and I've got a tummy ache today. I wonder if I can blame this on France. Anyway, with our tier list currently looking pretty top heavy, I was kind of hoping that Hawkeye of all characters would put in some much needed distribution, and no, he didn't. Yeah, it turns out Hawkeye literally has a dog called Lucky the Pizza Dog, and he's actually quite a chill guy whenever he's not putting 50 missed arrows into the wall behind your average support player. Okay, we can put Hawkeye in the Pizza Time tier, I'm fine with that, but this next character is an alien, so surely he's never eaten pizza. No, he hangs out with Spider-Man. Okay. Well, you know what, whilst I'm here, I'm just going to spend the rest of this section ranting about Reddit. I've got something I want to say. Skip forward if you're a weak loser and don't want to listen to that, but I'm going to set a timer for 28 seconds, starting now. If you or someone you know is on Reddit, please shut up. I'm trying to use this heavenless domain to find out whether fictional characters have eaten pizza, and I keep encountering 14-year-olds making up political situations and then getting angry at them. Even in the rivals spaces. For just an example, somehow looking up whether Venom has eaten pizza or not brings me to a post of someone going, "Oh guys, someone on the wrong side of the political spectrum on Twitter didn't like this skin. Can we please do something?" You sound like a clown, you're talking out your ass, no one's listening to you. Alright, time's up, let's talk about the Holocaust. So I bring up the Holocaust in reference to Magneto, not to make a mockery of the event, obviously, but ultimately to demonstrate to you how some of the research for this kind of video is conducted. When looking up has X character done Y fails me, and yeah, that really is the first step sometimes. I take a look back at the character's life through the comics and their various incarnations to ultimately come to my answer. Magneto 2 videos in a row serving as a pretty good example. Born in Germany sometime before World War II, fled to Poland, was eventually captured, and survived the concentration camps along with German oppression. It's at this point it seems Magneto really starts to travel the world, eventually acquainting and becoming good friends with one Charles Xavier. Now, Xavier's mansion / school for the gifted is actually located in Salem, New York. This, combined with no visual evidence of him ever eating or being near pizza, means I'm going to be putting him in a aware of Czar, not an eater. See how much fun that little bit of research was? Now times it by 44. It's so nice to have a character other than Ultron that isn't in the Pizza Time tier. How about we have another one? As established in the previous video, which is honestly funnier than this one, but you know, you try writing lots of aggressive jokes when the only thing funny in your life is how nothing went right. This specific Psylocke is called Psy from the Peach Momoko Demon Days comics. She has a companion wolf called Logan, and she travels around the country slaying Oni and yokai and all of that jazz. Once again though, the curse that is Psylocke in game turns into the blessing that is my research, as her comic run is specifically set in feudal Japan, which is a period of time from 1185 to 1868 AD. AD, and there was probably no pizza in the continent at that time. You know, through my research, I actually found out that the X-Men specifically have some of the lowest numbers of pizza eaters in the entire roster, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute, but I'm going to have to stomach that for now as I yell at this man. So during my research for whether Gambit and Rogue have eaten pizza, I stumbled upon this panel of them cooking, and then spent 40 minutes trying to find the original comic it came from. I think it's from X-Men Volume 2, Issue 97 from 1999, but since I don't want to pay to read the comic, I'm not entirely confident about that. I know most people take that little bit of white text at the bottom corner of the video for granted, but to make that white text possible, I go to places to find the original sources of images. I wouldn't even go with a gun, so I thought I'd just bring it up. Anyway, yeah, this image. Turns out they're not actually making pizza. And another 40 minutes of research ultimately concludes me to believe that both Gambit and Rogue are aware of Tsar, but they are not eaters. Now for magic, we're gonna reverse the normal of things a little bit. Just like how one of my college teachers reversed the normal of things a little bit by joining the private Discord server me and my friends made with each other, and ultimately ended up getting fired for it. Yeah, that really happened, by the way. By reversing the normal, I mean I'm going to be putting her in the What's Pizza tier now, and then explaining to you why later. Which is now, actually. So folks, we all know the story. Sister of Cyclops, unwilling ruler of Limbo, crazy girl, blah blah blah. Because of the amount of time she spent in Limbo, Magic seems to be quite unknowledgeable about the real world, and also very obsessive about the few things she does know, and no, that does not mean she will ever love you. There are these panels from Secret Wars Volume 2, Installment 8 that I think are really funny, in which she has what's probably her first interaction with cake, ultimately ending up stealing some, and then there's another similar storyline like this with coffee. And if she didn't know what either of those two things are, I highly doubt she knows what pizza is. The caked up cakey belongs in the What's Pizza tier, and this is good for me as we get to move on and I don't have to talk about the magic situation. Now, Storm, for once in her life, is actually relatively interesting to talk about in a Marvel Rivals context. Her mother was from Kenya, but moved to America with her father in order to give birth to and raise Storm in Manhattan, which could technically make her a New Yorker and a guaranteed pizza eater. However, thanks to my ingenious ability to scroll down on the wiki page, I discovered that after 6 months of living in New York, her family ended up moving to Egypt because her father got a job there. So we can rule out pizza eating within the 6 months of her being in Manhattan because she would have been too young. Yet she would eventually go on to move back to New York and live in Charles Xavier's mansion. With these factors combined, I think I'm just going to put her in the aware of Tsar but not an eater tier. No proof of her eating any pizza, but she's a modern day human living in the modern day world, so she knows it exists. Actually, you know what? Operating under that logic, I think we can get rid of Luna Snow as well. Same doing, no proof of eating pizza, but she lives in the modern day world, so I think it's quite likely she knows it exists. Anyway, shut up. Who's ready for a real curveball? Emma Frost is going in the pizza time tier. The main thing you have to remember about Emma Frost is that everything from her personality to her body is pretty much completely fake. Even her accent is fake, as I was very surprised to learn that she was actually born and raised in Boston. Anyway, when she was very young, she would end up leaving home due to, troubles, and would find herself being a stripper in New York. Pizza most definitely would have been one of the things she survived on. One of my main theories for this, other than the fact that she was in New York City, actually comes from this comic panel here, where she claims that pizza is the food of peasants. Something about this just tells me that this is probably a takes one to know one kind of a deal. So, pizza time for her. Someone I was even more surprised to learn likes pizza than Emma Frost, however, is actually Namor. Now, if you know me, you know that I hate this prick. Whose drunken sailor father and crusty mermaid mother did you spawn from? Well, actually, he's half human, and is also a very big fan of surface dweller foods, which is just, could you be any more unlikable? No, don't get me wrong, I like surface foods as well, I practically live off them. But could this guy get any more cartoonishly evil? His hater levels are even more exaggerated than those in James Gunn's Superman by James Gunn, written by James Gunn, featuring James Gunn's wife with James Gunn's music taste, crammed to the brim with James Gunn's comedy taste. Do you want a solo serious Superman movie? No, of course you don't. You want a buddy team-up goofy movie where Superman is a secondary character. Okay. I feel a lot better now. 2 more X-Men to cover, then we'll do some randos. Unsurprisingly, quite a lot of Wolverine's comic book history has just been spent eating random crap. Look at this panel here. Why is he just tucking into a lobster? What are the lore implications of this? And yes, there is a panel in the first installment of House of M where he is tucking into some fresh Tsar. As for Jean, I really couldn't find anything concrete. If you take away all of the parts that make her an abnormal person, she's actually quite a normal person, no matter how many times the films want to deconstruct and destroy her character. Anyway, normal human, living in a normal world, world, living in Xavier's mansion, pizza might be there. You might have remembered at the beginning of the Gambit section where I said that there was a good reason for why a lot of the X-Men haven't eaten pizza. I lied. Anyway, let's talk about some random characters, starting with Jeff. Jeff is a baby shark who likes his cheese drippy. I am so sorry for that sentence. The main image that kept reappearing in my research on Jeff was this one here. It took me a while to trace it, but I'm fairly confident it's from the 2019 run of Deadpool. The background characters and the art style match, and that's... Wait, hang on, I just had a headache with pictures. A thought, give me a second. So, essentially, I just remembered that the highlight intro for the symbiote Jeff skin has him eating lots of things. Like, I know he's eating burgers, so I just want to check if he's eating pizza. I want, okay, does he eat any here? Burgers, ice cream. Was that pizza? I thought it was chicken. Okay, well, let's check here. Okay, there's hot dogs in the back. Oh, it's so hard to tell. Is any of this pizza? Okay, I'm in Premiere Pro right now. If I sound a little bit echoey, I apologize. I've got the mic set up differently. So we've got ice cream, we got hot dogs, we got popcorn. Okay, yes, these are like chicken thighs. I think that's what that is. Ice cream. Okay, so there's no pizza there. I'm just trying to read the back. Is that Wendy's? Okay, come on, it's got to be here. He's not on a pizza wagon right now. No, that's hot dogs. I can't see any. I'm really disappointed. I thought there was going to be some pizza here. No, okay, no, there's no pizza. Well, I'm really upset then. Well, that was a waste of 8 minutes on my end. I could have spent that entire time jerking it in circular motions. I would have much rather have done that. Don't even know what I'm whining about. Don't care. Doesn't bother me. Alright then, Adam Warlock. Don't care. Oh, 2 videos in a row. Let's shoot for 40. Look, okay, I like Adam Warlock. I like how he plays. I don't even think he's that bad. But if NetEase doesn't care about him, give me one reason why I should. For these next 3 characters, we're going to play a little game, as they are all technically New Yorkers, and you get 130 guesses as to which ones they are. Okay, time's up. The answer's Cloak and Dagger and Penny. And yes, Hustle and Flow do count as 2 different characters. The Pimp and the Hoe are both runaways to the streets of New York, with the pair of them coming from very different socio-economical backgrounds. And as someone who's part of a mixed race relationship himself, I'm gonna end that sentence there actually. A nice fresh cheesy slice would have been one of the main things separating the homeless on the streets of New York from the homeless on the streets of New York. And trust me, there is a difference there. As for Penny, born in Tokyo, raised in New York City. With this being a slightly older rendition of the character, I was wondering if this would have been changed up a little bit, but no, seems to be the same case. I like stealing, I like taking things. Hang on, you're literally a New Yorker. And aren't you technically one as well? Okay, so for Frank, yeah, he was born in Queens. Egg on my face, I didn't realise this going in. Oopsie poopsie, can't help being a Capri Sun. As for Bucky, he was born in a place called Indiana, which I'm only just realising is in fact a real state, which means I owe a friend from 8 years ago 15 quid and a small tug under the table. One wiki source I read said that his mother and father moved to New York City with him and his sister before they died, but I don't know how credible that is. Combining that with the fact that the military camp he was stationed in for a while is actually in Virginia, made me reluctant, to say the least, to put him in the pizza time tier, but I think the amount of time he's spent with Captain America alone I think would warrant that. On the topic of that though actually, the funny mini story. Whilst I was trying to find any actual comic proof of Bucky eating pizza, I stumbled upon these pictures of Joe Biden eating pizza with US soldiers in Poland, and why is he raw dogging it? Look at that face. He's eating that pizza without a condom on. That's really reckless of him. Never change, Big Joe. Okay, I can't put it off anymore. It's at this point in the video that I'm going to tell you my biggest secret, and no, it's not that one. Whilst researching this video, I discovered that there is an official Marvel cookbook, and Moon Knight has a pizza recipe. So Moon Knight is from Chicago, Spider-Man is from New York, and so in the book there's like a pizza called the Chicago Dog Pizza, which is like kind of just hot dog sausage chopped onto a pizza. It's a collaboration between the 2 characters, so he technically didn't make it, but it is very inspired by him. So, does this count? Like, I know we're not counting games, and we're not counting the films or the TV, anything like that. And this is absolutely not a comic book thing, this is just inspired by comic books. But should this count? It was at this point in this video's creation that I decided to consult the sacred texts, the original Schaeferless Pizza video. The original video's creation was spurred on by the fact that in Tears of the Kingdom, Link could actually make a pizza, and even though other characters could in their home series, Link got his own tier being the CEO of pizza for this. So guess what I'm doing? My main, shut up, my video, my rules. Look, he literally has a pizza recipe IRL. I don't think there's a Spider-Man pizza recipe anywhere. Welcome all to our glorious King Moon Knight, the CEO of pizza, hot dogs, and racism, just because I thought I'd throw that in there. Tonight's episode of Pizza and Hot Dogs is guest starring racism, filmed in front of a live studio audience who have very mixed feelings about that. Rounding up the Asgardians, we're going to be dividing them in two between those who've spent a lot of time in human society and those who haven't. One thing you have to remember is that pizza, much like the Polish, isn't really something that the gods are aware exists, and so if there were to be found cheesy satisfaction within the Nine Realms, it would be on Earth. Loki and Thor specifically have spent more time meddling in human society than the other two, yet I couldn't actually find any comic panels or otherwise scenes of them eating pizza. For this, I'm going to be putting them in a where-ups are, not eaters. As for the other two, I really don't think there's any chance Angela's even seen a pizza, and double that for Hela. Angela does have a history of hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we'll get to them in a moment, but if I haven't seen her within smelling distance of a pizza, then it hasn't happened. It's not real, it's not true. That's how all of life works, by the way. If I haven't seen it, it doesn't exist, just like Poland. Maybe I am God. Look, okay, it's either Germany or Poland. Pick your poison. Now, this is the part in the video where I tell you that this is the part in the video where I say that whilst doing research for this video, I found someone else called Andrew San Too Many Numbers on Reddit, who actually made his own tier list of which characters in-game have eaten pizza. Now, this is the part in the video where I tell you that this is the part in the video where I drop this and stop saying that because it's really annoying, but also that our lists look very different because we're using different criteria, and he failed to heed Gordon's warning about not providing any sources. Again, that little bit of white text there, that's the mecha team leader of Lon'qudor videos. But good job, lad, for having the idea for this 5 months before I did. Our last group of jackable asses before we clean up the strays is the Guardians. That includes the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the UK. I was hoping to find a group munchie solving session somewhere, but sadly no. I did, however, manage to find this official panel of Groot going at a pizza harder than a lonely woman watching a serial killer documentary. Biologically, how does this work? Am I right now in assuming that he doesn't photosynthesize? He finds his way into snow pizza heaven. As for Rocket, there's a panel in Rocket Raccoon and Groot Volume 1 where they're literally discussing Chicago-style pizza on an alien planet. So he makes his way up there as well, and it's just a shame the two of them weren't sharing one together. Star-Lord is also a confirmed pizza eater, as him and Gay Pride have their own mini comic run, and one of the variant covers for Installment 2 answers our question handsomely. And as for Mantits, I couldn't find any panels of her eating pizza. I am quite confident to say she's aware it exists, as not only have many of her allies eaten pizza before, but also she probably would have interacted with some of the really strong emotions these characters have towards pizza. Aware of Czar, not an eater. Okay, 6 more characters to go. I wonder if we can speedrun this. Blade is actually British. That really threw me off when I found out that he was born in Soho, London. Don't even joke, lad. Anyway, he has lived and fought a lot of vampires in New York for a very long time, so we're putting him in the pizza tier. Black Panther is another character who's spent a lot of time in a lot of places, but I don't think he's ever right-click, shift-E'd his way into a pizza shop. Aware of Czar, not an eater. Scarlet Bitch has spent quite a lot of time both as an Avenger and in New York City, and so she immediately gets a fast track into the pizza tier. Just gonna quickly go on a small tangent here, but I promise it is relevant. I think my previous video might have been shared around in some sort of furry Discord server, because at the very beginning I said I wasn't mentally ill enough to be interested in whether a raccoon had done it with someone else before, and I had a sleuth of furry comments in repetition from one another attempting to clown me for that statement, including this guy who said my research was claimless, my humour was dry, and that it wasn't very nice to call people I disagree with mentally ill. And to that I say, speaking of mentally ill, Squirrel Girl, or as I like to call her, Squirrel, actually moved to New York when she was 15, so she spent quite a lot of time there and has probably eaten pizza. And finally, we have Lin Lee, or as I like to call him, Lin Lee's 6 7s in your mouth. The Iron Fist is a title that's passed down through warriors, and whilst previous Iron Fists have eaten pizza, there is no evidence of Lin Lee eating pizza. And with him being a normal human being, relatively, we'll settle with putting him in Aware of Czar, not an eater. And that's where the video would normally end if it weren't for this tier. So, one of the most repeated things I had commented on my previous video, except for people acknowledging how funny and handsome I am, was people saying that I forgot to include Galacta in which Marvel Rivals heroes are virgins. And I did. And I did because it's complicated. But somehow pizza is less complicated. You've made it this far into the video, so I'm going to let you know there probably is going to be a part 2 to that video where I correct the very few mistakes I made and add in a few extra characters. But until that day comes, let's talk about whether she's eaten pizza. So the main thing I've come to understand about reading Galactus lore is that it's probably all just a very poorly disguised fetish. She was born of a tapeworm, I think, and then she's supposed to eat planets like her father, but she doesn't want to because that's bad, so she eats like alien goo or something, and she has a tapeworm which is actually an unborn child. Do you see why I now think this is a fetish? Planet consumption aside though, there she is. She's in Times Square. So, does that count? Maybe? But if this Galacta is faithful to her original depiction, then probably no. I mean, yeah, she's human-sized now, but that's not inherently in a Times Square. And this is why the Mayhaps tier was created. And we're putting her in there because I've been working on this video for 23 days and I no longer care. Good night, Tri-State Galacta. Wow, that's incredible. Another epic vein in the amazing throbbing phallus that is my channel. If I've learnt anything from making this video, it's that the previous one was funnier. And also, if my tier lists are correct, Marvel Rivals characters are more likely to have found true love than to have eaten pizza, which is honestly really funny. So until the day comes when Galacta is caught throating a slice behind the Times Square Papa John's, my name is Lon'qudor, Nerf Adam Warlock, and instead of insta-locking Psylocke, eat grilled chicken. What the? What are you doing? You plonker. Oh, G to interact.